Please accept my resignation, sir. My last day will be in 2 weeks.
Why do you want to resign?
I want to resign for personal reasons.
I'm offering you a 5% raise.
I'm sorry, I can't accept.
If you quit, you must compensate me with $500 million.
Please, I beg you.
Quang thought choosing love over corporate life would set him free, but he never expected the storm waiting on the other side. After deciding to leave his high-pressure job to build a peaceful future with Linda on her farm, Quang faces a shocking twist. His CEO refuses to let him go, offering irresistible deals before unleashing a brutal $500 million penalty. Torn between love and an impossible debt, Quang hides the truth from Linda as his world quietly collapses. Subscribe now to follow this emotional, gripping journey filled with sacrifice, secrets, and unbreakable love. Quang had spent countless nights lying awake, listening to the quiet hum of the city outside his window, while his thoughts churned restlessly inside his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the gentle hills of Linda's farm, the rows of green vegetables she tended with love, and the warm smile she always saved just for him. Those images wrapped around his heart like sunlight, reminding him of the simple, peaceful life waiting for him, far from the corporate walls he had lived in for so many years. But leaving his job, his stable, respectable, well-paid job, wasn't as easy as walking through an open door. It meant giving up everything familiar, everything predictable, everything he had worked tirelessly to build. Yet the decision had matured inside him, like a seed breaking open. He wanted a new beginning. He wanted life, not survival. And above all, he wanted to build that life with Linda. That morning, Quang dressed more carefully than usual. His hands trembled slightly as he buttoned his shirt, but his eyes held a firm, steady determination. Today wasn't just another workday, it was the day he would choose his future. The elevator ride to the top floor felt unusually long, the soft music echoing his heartbeat. When the door slid open, he inhaled deeply, straightened his shoulders, and walked toward the CEO's office with silent resolve. The CEO, a sharp-eyed man in his 50s with a reputation for intelligence and ruthlessness in equal measure, was reviewing documents when Quang entered. He didn't look up at first, simply said, "Sit down, Quang. What's on your mind?" Quang lowered himself into the chair, grateful for the few extra seconds to steady his breathing. Then, with a quiet courage he had gathered over weeks, he spoke. "Sir, I'd like to submit my resignation." The CEO froze. Slowly, he lifted his eyes, studying Quang as though he had not heard correctly. "Resignation?" he repeated, disbelief coloring his voice. "Why?" Quang swallowed. He said, "I want to return to the countryside. I want to help Linda with her farm. That's where I belong." For several seconds, the office fell into a heavy silence. The CEO set his pen down carefully, almost too carefully. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, eyes cold with calculation. "You've been one of my best employees, hardworking, loyal, efficient. And now you want to quit?" "It's something I've thought about deeply," Quang replied, keeping his tone respectful but firm. "This is the life I want." The CEO's jaw tightened, though he tried to mask it. He had expected many things from Quang over the years, but not this. Losing Quang meant losing a piece of the company's backbone, a man who never complained, never failed, never disappointed. Suddenly, the room felt too quiet, like the calm before a storm. And in that quiet, Quang sat with his decision, brave, vulnerable, and completely certain. The CEO remained silent for a long moment, his gaze sharpening as though he were trying to read every hidden intention behind Quang's calm expression. Then, without warning, he pressed a button on his desk phone. "Call my secretary," he ordered. "Now." Quang felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Something in the CEO's tone had shifted, no longer confused or surprised, but calculated, almost predatory. Moments later, the door opened and the secretary, a composed woman in her 30s, stepped inside holding her tablet. "Bring in the proposal draft we discussed last quarter," the CEO said, "and the revised compensation structure, all of it." "Yes, sir," she replied and left swiftly. The CEO turned back to Quang, his expression unreadable. "Listen," he began, his voice softer than before, almost persuasive. "I know countryside life feels peaceful. I know love can make people reconsider everything." He leaned forward, fixing Quang with a steady stare. "But you're not like other employees. You're valuable, you're smart, you're dependable. I can't afford to lose someone like you." Quang swallowed hard but said nothing. The secretary returned with a neatly organized folder. The CEO opened it and slid the documents across the table toward Quang. "Before you decide to throw everything away," he said, "take a look." Inside were offers far beyond anything Quang had expected. A salary increase large enough to make most employees faint, a reduction of working hours so he could visit the farm whenever he wanted, an annual bonus guarantee, even control over a major new project, the type of authority people spent decades competing for. "My company rewards loyalty," the CEO continued, his voice smooth. "You want a better work-life balance? Done. You want more financial freedom when you marry? Easily arranged. Whatever it is, I can match it. Just stay." For a moment, Quang's heart wavered, not because the offers tempted him, but because the situation felt painfully unfair. The CEO wasn't evil, he was strategic, a man who knew how to keep what he wanted. And in this moment, what he wanted was Quang. But Quang steadied himself. "Sir, I'm grateful, truly, but this isn't about money or position. My choice won't change." The CEO blinked slowly. His posture stiffened and the gentle tone disappeared like a falling mask. The secretary glanced nervously between the two men, sensing the shift in the room. "Quang," the CEO said, voice now colder, "you're refusing everything I offer." Quang nodded. "Yes, sir." The CEO exhaled through his nose, a soft sound of irritation. "Very well," he said. If persuasion doesn't work, he opened a drawer, pulled out a thick contract, and placed it on the desk with a heavy thud. "We will follow the rules." The secretary's eyes widened slightly. She knew exactly what that meant. Quang leaned forward, scanning the page. His vision tightened when he reached the highlighted section. Contract termination fee, 500 million VND. A chill swept through him. $500 million. More than he had ever owned. More than he could ever gather quickly. The CEO folded his arms. "He's lost his mind," Quang thought. "You may leave," he said quietly, "once you pay this." Everything inside Quang sank. But he forced his face to remain calm, hiding the tremor in his chest. For Linda's sake, he had to stay strong. That night, after leaving the office with trembling hands and a contract-shaped weight crushing his chest, Quang drove straight to Linda's farm. The sky had already fallen into a deep velvet blue, scattered with stars that shimmered like distant lanterns guiding lost souls. The gravel road cracked softly beneath his tires as he approached the familiar wooden gate. Normally, the sight of the little farmhouse glowing with warm yellow lights filled him with peace. But tonight, that peace felt fragile, something he didn't deserve to touch. Linda was somewhere in the garden, tending to the last of the evening chores. Quang could hear her humming a gentle tune as she watered a row of young fruit trees. The sound should have soothed him, yet it only made his throat tighten. How could he tell her? How could he burden her with a debt larger than their entire farm combined? He stepped onto the porch and sat down heavily on the wooden stairs. The night breeze carried the smell of freshly cut grass and moist soil. Fireflies drifted lazily around the edges of the yard, blinking like tiny floating stars. Everything was beautiful, quietly, naturally beautiful, and it made the storm inside him feel even more cruel. Minutes later, Linda approached, wiping her hands on her apron. "You came earlier than usual," she said with a bright smile. She leaned in to kiss his cheek, but paused the moment she saw the stiffness in his eyes. "Quang, is everything okay?" He forced a smile. "I'm just tired. Long day at work." Linda frowned softly but didn't push. She sat beside him on the steps, her shoulder brushing against his. "You've been working too hard. Soon, when you move here, things will be simpler, calmer, happier." Those words stabbed straight into his heart. Move here, simpler, happier? If only it were that easy. Quang stared at the dark field stretching beyond the fence. Just hours earlier, he had imagined himself walking through it every morning, waking up beside Linda, building a future that didn't depend on deadlines and corporate pressure. Now that dream was trapped behind a barrier of 500 million dong, an impossible wall he didn't know how to climb. Linda rested her head on his shoulder, completely unaware of the battle raging inside him. "No matter how hard your day was," she whispered, "you're home now." Quang shut his eyes. The words nearly broke him. He wanted to tell her everything: the CEO's manipulative generosity, the sudden shift to cold legal threats, the monstrous penalty that now chained him to a life he desperately wanted to leave. But the image of Linda worrying, losing sleep, blaming herself, he couldn't bear that. So he swallowed the truth. "I'll be okay," he said gently. Linda intertwined her fingers with his, believing him without hesitation. Her trust was warm, comforting, and painfully heavy. As she leaned on him, talking softly about the seedlings growing well this season, Quang stared up at the starry sky, feeling the crushing weight of a secret that might destroy their future. But for tonight, just tonight, he held onto her hand and pretended nothing was wrong. Because he didn't know how many nights like this
xin chào tất
he
cả
had
các khán
left.
giả của kênh Lý Tử Linda Review. Vậy là câu chuyện của chúng ta ngày hôm nay đã kết thúc tại đây. Trong câu chuyện hôm nay của chúng ta thì Quang đã quyết định nghỉ việc để về làm nông trại và cũng như là bảo vệ Linda để anh luôn luôn có bên cạnh Linda. Nhưng vị CEO nơi Quang làm việc không đồng ý cho Quang nghỉ. Ông ta thậm chí đưa ra một lời đề nghị để níu kéo anh nhưng vẫn không thuyết phục được anh, thì sau đó ông ta đã chuyển sang đe dọa. Mọi tình tiết hấp dẫn về câu chuyện Quang và Linda sẽ còn được kể các video tiếp theo. Các bạn nếu thấy video hay hấp dẫn thì hãy bấm nút like, share và đừng quên để lại bình luận ở dưới video nhé. Cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều. Thanks for watching. Bye bye and see you.